Please welcome Ken Spears. Hi, Ken. How you doing?
Hi guys, how are you?
Good,
I'm
good,
doing
good.
great.
How long have we known each other?
For over 30 years.
Yes.
40 years?
Yeah, something like that. 30 years, 40 years, something.
My apologies.
Didn't
Yes.
yeah. I think you coached my brother's baseball team.
Of course I did.
Yes.
Yes, Vinny, your brother. I have coached him several times. He's a great guy. We both have a wrestling connection.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've read his book. He's actually written a book.
Oh, really? I'll have to get
Yeah.
him on the show.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, Ken, let me ask you this. You have a new book out, and honestly, I
Yes.
can't wait to read it. It's called How Deep the Night. Can you
Yes.
tell us about it?
It's a short story collection. As you both know, that I started. This is the third book I have out, and the first two are a series. So I wanted to step away from the series briefly, try my hand at something else. These are stories. Some have been around for a while. A lot of them have been used or submitted to magazines or that sort of thing. And I decided that I had enough collected, and they were interesting enough, and I packaged them into a novel.
I see. So, on these short stories, how many of them are there?
There's 8.
8? Okay.
And the first 4 just stand independently, but the last 4, there's a string that ties them together.
Mhm.
And it's a little of everything. As you know, I really love the macabre, the horror genre, something spooky and scary. And there is an old-fashioned ghost story that's the first story up. And then, but there's a little bit of everything. There's science fiction. There's suspense. There's a story about bullies. There's stories about people losing their memories. There's an interesting story about a glutton. So there's a little bit of everything, always with that dark twist, and just make it fun to read.
I like dark.
My writing's more like the Happy Meal of the literary industry.
The Happy Meal of the literary industry.
I like that.
Right.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
No heavy lifting. It's just a good time. Enjoy it. That's all it's there for. To make you happy for a little while.
Exactly.
That's how I look at it.
Hey,
Yeah,
that
Ken,
works. Go
So
ahead.
Ken, the ideas for your books, either the series or the short stories, do they come out of personal experience in any way, or are they just they just come out of ideas of in your own head? How do you come up with your storylines, either for your short stories or your sequels?
Well, that's probably the most common question asked is where does all this stuff come from? And there's no right answer to this. Obviously, there's a lot of the author involved in the writing, and it could be little snippets into their personal lives, whether you realize it or not, but not necessarily actual experiences. Some of it could just be ideas I got from a song or a street name or something while I'm driving or something somebody said. The ghost stories, for example, in the first story, it's kind of a tapestry of other ghost stories I've heard over time. You tell around a campfire, that kind of thing. And I just made one story out of it. And so it could come from anywhere. I tend to keep a notebook and a pen with me because, like I said, it literally can happen any time. And, oh, my God, that's a great story. And then you start jotting the stuff down. And when I write, I kind of do a really rough outline. And then I start going for it. And I collect all these notes and ideas, and I flesh them out. And it's almost like I'm watching a movie sometimes. When you're on, it comes out of you all on its own, and you're just watching it happen. And then sometimes you have to work for it. You have to fill in the spots. You have to edit it, and sometimes it doesn't sound so good, and you do it again until it's right.
That's interesting.
So that's where all the ideas come from.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. So if you have, because I don't, this show is focusing on you, but we've had other shows where I've talked about my past, and I've had some things that I've thought about writing my story as a book. People have told me that it would work as a book. But my problem is sitting down and having to relive everything. How do you get beyond that when that blocks you? If it does have some personal, if it does have some personal elements to it, how do you get beyond that getting started point and just going for it?
I don't think you get beyond it. I think you take it with you, and sometimes if a story is good, especially if it's painful, you work this problem out by writing about it. Songwriters do this all the time, and you take that emotion that you have, whatever it may be, positive or negative, painful or not, and you ride it. You live it again, and you put it down while it's happening and it's fresh, and you're really revealing. You're opening yourself and revealing, and your inside. While you do that, you're exposing yourself, and you have to be able to do that. So writing isn't just doing that. That's one part of it. But the other part of it, and most of the successful writers will tell you the real hard part, is to actually sit down and make yourself write, even the days that you're dry, so that you put out this kind of work. You need to do this on a regular basis. There's some kind of discipline that you instill in yourself to get up every day, and I do it early. That's just what works for me. So at literally 5:36 in the morning, I'm working before I go to work. Or whatever I'm doing. It's Sunday, it could be any day, and I'm doing that because that's what works for me, and I have it done by 8 or 9 o'clock. So I've done 3, 4, 5, and some days 8, 9 pages, because depending where I am in the story. And that's the other part of it. So you have to find the story that speaks to you. And you want to write about something that just doesn't speak to you, but speaks to everybody. And again, it's your writing. Write what you want to write about. But if you want it to be read by more people, it should be something that appeals to all of them. You could write about your Uncle Stu, and that's great, but if you're the owner of Uncle Stu, it might not be as interesting to so many people. But then again, the way you tell it could make it very interesting.
I agree. If you tell a story to the masses, I think that the masses will respond and because they'll be able to relate.
That's very true. That's very true. And and I think that's what's so great about the short story, because a lot of people, they like to read something, but they don't want to sit down necessarily and read. They don't want to sit down necessarily and read, a novel or something. They want to read a short story, or they want to read a poem or something like that. So I think that's what I think is great about a book of short stories. I think that's awesome that you have that out there for people.
There's less of a commitment. You're not working 300, 400, 500 pages, or even more in some cases, to get to the end, to get to the punchline. You do it in a lot less time. The problem or the challenge to the writer is, in this short period of time, can I generate enough empathy for my characters? Can I create real characters, and whatever real situation this is, that'll engage the reader? So that is challenging. But sometimes it's just a story that was meant to be told in that manner.
How long have you been writing, Ken?
Well, I started when I was young. We used to make our own comic books and act them out and draw the pictures, and then we wrote short stories, and very influenced by science fiction writers, and later the likes of Stephen King, because to me the horror genre is the real toy store of writing, and it really is to me. Other people disagree, but that's fine. But there's so many big names out there that influenced me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. And then you just take it up and run. And then I did it into high school in creative writing class. I'm sure you remember Mrs. Dolan, Mr. Clark.
Mrs. Dolan actually taught me all about media.
There you go.
I love Mrs. Dolan.
Yeah, me too. And actually found some of those documents from high school and reprinted them and handed them out to some of the people, including some mutual friends of ours that I'll go into later. But and I brought it up through college, and then life takes over, and family and work, and you always say, I'm going to write a book someday, and so many people do, and then never actually sit down and do it.
Bingo.
And the opportunity came to do so. And in doing it, I developed a method that worked for me to continue doing it. So the first book came out, and the second one came out right behind it, and the third one. Actually, that series we were talking about earlier, the young adult series, Step Patrick, the 3 books just were written one right after the other, just kept coming. It was like I tapped into a vein, and it was just, I don't want to say limitless or bottomless, but it definitely had a lot of potential in there. So I had written a story for my daughter, and then the vampire story, and there's a lot more that I'll cover later, that I found just by making myself do it. You know, it's like exercising a muscle.
It is, and when you write, I've been trying to write a little bit of a book myself ever since I moved out here, and so far
And
I
what's
have
it about?
so far I have about a sentence done.
Well, you need to devote more time to it, young man.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how not to get sued. It's one of those.
Yeah,
okay.
well, you just have to change the names to protect the innocent.
Protect the innocent,
Yeah,
that's right.
but the thing is, it's an autobiography, and it's going to piss some people off. It's oh well.
Well,
Yeah.
write the story first.
Yes.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Well, yeah, isn't that right? I'm going to use a line from Fried Green Tomatoes, the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, where
Yes.
yeah, she says,
Yeah.
"I'm older, I have more insurance."
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Love
That's
it.
exactly what I was thinking of.
Yes. So,
So-
go ahead, Ken. Go ahead, Amy. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So, Ken, obviously, when you're writing a book and then you're going through the process of having it published and then going through the process of are people going to buy it, I'm sure it's not smooth sailing along the way. I'm sure that you had some no's or some people that were just not interested. How do you deal with the no's? Because you have to get a lot more no's to get a yes. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the rejection part?
I cry. No. Well, actually, who knows? I mean, you deal with it in your own way, but there's hundreds of no's. There's hundreds of no's before yes will come along. And that's just the way it is. As a matter of fact, nowadays it's even harder to break in. Believe it or not, even though there's more media now than ever before, and there's just that many more people standing on top of their chairs screaming at the top of their lungs to be heard.
Absolutely. I
imagine
agree
it
with
that
you
way.
100% on that.
So to make yourself unique and stand out, how do you do that? So you just have to keep it's. I just revert right back to it's work. You know, this. The analogy that I pick up is, you know, my son wanted to play electric guitar, so we bought him one for his birthday, and he put it down after a week, disappointed that he couldn't play like Jimmy Page right away. And what I was saying to him is, you have to go to lessons. This is something that you're going to need to do for years and develop calluses on your fingers, and this is work.
It is.
It is
Everything
work.
is. Everything
Yeah,
is
so
work.
if you want it to be successful, you work at it. So you're doing what I do now. You talk to people. You rely on your friends, your network. It's very grassroots how I do it. I literally meet readers one at a time, and I'm willing to do that because it's worth it. You know, and someday the right reader may get his hands on it, and it may bring it even further along than I could. So, getting back to the question, you know, nowadays you need an agent before you can talk to a publisher. You know, most major publishers will not take an unsolicited manuscript. So, you know, gone are the days, you've seen them in the movies and TV shows where the person has all these envelopes filled with their copies of the manuscript and they're mailing them all to everywhere. That doesn't happen anymore. And if you do that, they'll just mail it back to you unread. So you have to find an agent first, and in a similar fashion, to try and get them to read your book so that they can promote your book, and so that they can get a piece of your book when it gets published. And around we go. So it literally is, and I'm not trying to dissuade young writers, new writers, young or old, from doing this, because if you really have something to say, and you really believe in yourself that you're good enough to do this, and you're really willing to open yourself to have people read your work and to take the criticism and just the good and the bad with it, and then you must continue every day doing what you can do, leave no stone unturned, so that you can get your message out there so that it lands in the right hands.
Exactly, exactly, and that's my approach to my day job too. I'm a salesperson, and that's my exact approach. Yes, people slam the door and say no soliciting, escort me out of buildings, whatever. But if you do not persist and you do not do anything to better the situation, you're going to stay stagnant.
Yeah.
And nobody likes stagnation. I know I don't.
Right. Now you mentioned that you have to get an agent before you're even considered to get published. So it isn't like it was in TV shows, and I'm being female. I'm a big and as an adult admitting, I will deny I ever admitted this, but I guess I can't deny it since it's on the radio, that I'm a big Little House on the Prairie fan. I've been that way since I was a kid, and they show the writing process that Laura Ingalls Wilder had. So it isn't what you've seen in the movies and on TV. You do have to have that agent, is what you're saying, right? It isn't the mailing out of your, here's, get my manuscript printed and just send it out and see who says yes, right?
Yes, with an asterisk, and the asterisk is this: yes, to the direct, large public, the Simon & Schuster's, the Penguins of the world, the big publishers on the block. And there's only a handful of them, but there's other doors now that didn't exist before. And I'll give you the best example I can think of that everybody will know. 50 Shades of Grey, very popular book, and it turned into a movie. There was 3 of them actually. Best Times, New York Times bestseller list, and all the things. Self-published. That was a self-published book. So there are other avenues that you can go. You can self-publish. That has its own pluses and minuses, because that's an avenue that I've used as well, and it's good because it is available to the masses. You could put a book out as soon as you're ready to do so. It's that, I want to say it's that easy, but it really is. But you've got to be prepared to have the book ready to be consumed by the public. So you can't just put together any, piece of work, for lack of a better term, right? And just throw it out there, some slop that you just slap together. You got to spend some time. So even with self-published books, you need to procure your own editor, which could cost hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars. Your own artwork, if you're not doing it yourself, and then your own publicity, and banging the drums so that people will listen to your message. So yes, there are other ways now than the traditional, I'm going to mail this off to Simon & Schuster, Penguin, et cetera, and hope that they pick me up. There's now all these other avenues of self-publishing and self-promoting. There are other ways in. So I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to dissuade anybody new, because there could be the next John Grisham out there, Stephen King, or whoever, ready to go, and it would behoove us all to get that person published, because we don't want to miss that. But having said this, it takes the hard work.
It really does.
It just goes right back to that again. It's going to keep going back to that, because that's how you do it. That's the only way in. Unless you know somebody, your daddy, it works at Simon & Schuster, good luck. Other than that, or if your mom is an agent in New York, then you're okay. But the rest of us, blue collar folk, that's the way in. So there is a way in, but it's not. Imagine it like a nightclub with the guy at the door. Sometimes he lets you in, and sometimes he doesn't. So it's like that. It's a lot of work to get in there.
And is it true with self-publishing? I've heard that if it's self-publishing, that you have to provide the funds to get it published as well. Whereas if you're doing it through an agent, they're obviously going to want you. They're obviously going to want to get paid, so they're gonna find ways so that you're going to get paid, so that they get their commission. Am I right about about that?
To a degree, yes. You're on the right track for sure. So you're going to get an agent. You're going to go to Penguin. They're going to publish your book. They're typically going to give you an advance. You're going to get a contract. Maybe they're going to want more than one book from you, a 3-book contract, a 5-book contract, whatever it is. Again, very similar to the music industry. And that's great to get that kind of money up front. But when you're self-publishing, it depends on the venue, and there's multiple venues out there that you can go to these small-time. So you can go to some of these small-time self-publishers where you have to buy 5,000 books. So you have to come up with money. I mean, that costs like anywhere from $2 or $3 a book. So you're looking at $15,000 just to get the paper copies tonight, and you're going to house it because you're going to have 5,000 books sent to your home or wherever you have to store these things. So don't let them get wet either, because that's money sitting there.
Oh my God!
And yeah, but that's not the only app. Some other places, and I'm going to bring out Amazon because they're the biggest and the baddest in the block, have a program where they can publish on demand. And there's others like Barnes and Noble, and there's other places too. That I could go through the whole list, but and on-demand publishing is very simple, very little upfront cost, if any. But you must provide everything. And you you log into a website and you download your material, and it is then put into book format, and you can buy 1, 10, 100, however many you want at a time. And then if a big place like an Amazon will have venues where your material can then get on Kindle and other electronic devices, and also have exposure to distribution, where it's then sent to the smaller fish, so that they could, if they have a login, and in a lot of bookstores, if you go to them, they have these, and I forget the name of them, but they all have like their own little login to the wholesalers, and they can find your book in the bookstore and actually order it for you.
Right.
And they get a cut rate, and then they sell it to you for list price or what have you, whatever discount or sale they're running. And so there are other ways around this that aren't so expensive up front.
Right.
Yeah, wow.
So
it's a racket like everything else.
Yeah. You brought up something interesting. You mentioned the idea of electronic books and ebooks. How how has ebooks affected you as a writer? Because I know, because you obviously, when you go to a book signing, you can't sign an ebook, obviously. So
right.
So how, as a writer, what's your opinion about ebooks, and how has that affected you and your writing as of this, now that we have that?
It's got pluses and minuses to it, just like anything else. The pluses are simple. Your book can easily get out to more people because it's less expensive. So there's less risk. You can go to get on and buy my book on Kindle right now, depends on which one, for a couple bucks. So you're not really risking a lot of money. And then it literally is downloaded instantly to your device, and you can begin reading it within seconds of ordering it.
Really?
And that's amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Technology is wonderful. Like you said, the negative side is, obviously I'm old school and I like paper, but beyond that, you know, and the fact that you can't autograph your Kindle. I mean, I could, I suppose, but for the writer or for the publisher, since the cost is little, the margin's a little. That's probably the biggest drawback to it. But the pluses are just, I think they outweigh the negatives, because you can more easily get your word out to the masses electronically. I've got a Kindle Fire myself, and I used it recently when we went to on a trip last month, and I downloaded a few books. And it was just so much easier to carry one little device, and it would be 3 or 4 big, thick novels.
Exactly.
And, and it doesn't bother my eyes. The technology is really good right now, and it's only getting better. So they're easy to read. And a lot of us dinosaurs are dying off who have to have paper. So, everything being electronic is great. And to be honest with you, I'm happy that somebody's reading.
Yeah, you know what? That was actually the perfect segue to my question. You've got to be happy that somebody is actually reading, learning proper grammar.
Yes.
Oh,
not
gosh.
just reading my stuff, reading anything at this
Yes.
point. Reading is I don't want to say
Fundamental.
it's dying out because there's still a strong segment of the population that purchases reading materials, whether it be electronic or paper, and that's great. I just think more people need to do it. There's so many things vying for our attention nowadays that it's so difficult to get somebody to put down the television remote and go pick up a book. Ask your 15-year-old to do that right now.
Oh, I agree.
I know you don't have one, but just in general, try and get them to read never mind their homework, but just for pleasure. But then you flip that around, and you look at the Harry Potter phenomenon, and you would think that all kids still read.
You know,
You would hope they did.
you would hope so. I don't have a lot of faith in some of the younger generation anymore. I know I'm starting to sound like an old biddy, but
you'd be surprised. They still read. They just don't read what we used to read.
okay.
But they read. There's Percy Jackson and, of course, Harry Potter. Those are just examples. But and if you recall, they were lining up for those books. Those books would sell out in a day.
Right. Well, the younger generation, I guess what I mean, not so much the tweenagers, as I like to call 10, 11, 12, but the actual teenagers. I don't see them reading.
No, well, they read text, which is obviously improper grammar and syntax for the most part. But, they're actually sitting down with some kind of published material. I'm hesitant to say it's definitely not what it used to be, but, obviously there are indicators that, just from how it looks, it doesn't look like they're reading as much as they used to. And it's probably the case. I'm sure somebody has taken some data somehow and produced that information that we don't have at the moment. But I would like to believe that people are still interested in good stories.
Yeah, I would too. I would really like to believe that someone is interested in a great story, whether it be, a short story or what have you. But I would love to believe that people are interested in reading. I mean, it's sad to see the younger generation, the 15, 16, 17-year-olds, not reading. They're reading text. The syntax is wrong, as you said, and not learning about life, because I have a very bad feeling when they're 25, 30, 40, 50 years old. Not like we know what we're doing. They'll know even less.
I'm just the eternal optimist. The glass is always half full. So I believe that the written word is here to stay. There will always be a call for it. There's always a call for good stories. You guys live out near Hollywood. They're turning out and returning the same movie over and over again. It's just, they need fresh stuff.
Yeah.
So somebody's got to write that, and I believe that there's a lot of talented young people that can do that very thing, and there's a lot of talented older people, or those of us in between that can do it as well, and that are fresh and new and different, that are exciting, so you can pick up a book and read it. So, which brings me back to how I write what I do, and I try to make my books. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not looking to use triple word score words, things that'll you need a thesaurus to look up everything I'm saying. I'd rather write like we're doing, speaking, so that the story moves quickly. And a lot of my compliments are, I couldn't put your book down. I read it in 2 days. Actually, that's probably the most common thing I hear in regards to my work, which is so awesome to me. And another thing, we were just talking about reading. A lot of people say, I really read books, but I'll read your stuff,
Yeah,
and that's great.
that's me.
And because it's easier to read. It's not that it's simple, because the books are not simple. They're written, like a regular adult book, but I just make it so that it moves quickly, and it keeps your attention, and a lot of people like it.
Well, I have to ask you this, and I know the answer because I read the first book, obviously, and
Right.
and we've known each other for over 30 years. We grew up in the same backwards small town in Massachusetts.
That explains a lot.
Yes, a little town called Stoughton, which is 22 miles from Boston and 23 miles from Providence.
Yes.
Yes, about 5,000 people in there now. How did you get to write about our little town?
I just think including it in the stories, and my town is fictional, but it is obviously based on Stoughton, so that I had a little more, I don't know what you would call that, Doug. I had a little more license to make changes or make things look slightly different, but there's a lot of things in there that you might recognize, places mentioned that aren't there anymore. It's because there's an old adage, if you're a writer, write what you know about. So I know about Stoughton, and I really enjoyed growing up there. I enjoyed the town. I enjoyed the people. I think it's a great place. There's a lot of it was so close to so many things, and so it just brings me right back there. It's ground zero for me, and I wanted to just involve it in everything that I do in some way, and I try to. So that fictional town that I created based on Stoughton in the series, the Step Patrick series we were talking about earlier, actually carries on through multiple stories. As we were talking earlier, and now turning back to, I've got about 4 or 5 books in the chamber, if not more, that'll be released over the next 12 to 14 months, and all of them evolve or revolve around the fictional town of Layton. It's called Layton instead of Stoughton. And that's the tip of the hat to Stephen King, who used to use Derry all the time.
Yes.
In a lot of his books. So I try to do the same thing. Not all my stories take place there, but a lot of them do. And you'll be seeing more of that over the next several months.
Excellent, because I love the way you write. It is Stephen King-ish, in a way.
Well, that's a really heady place to be, and that's a huge compliment. But actually, if I was compared to somebody, the most common comparisons are drawn to Dean Koontz. Mm-hmm. Actually, so, yeah, which is also an excellent compliment.
Which is very good, but the problem with Dean Koontz, and I love his books, but the problem with him, he uses words that people really need a dictionary right next to them.
Yeah, he does like to do that a lot.
I think I have an
stories also move fast.
Yeah, I think I have an extensive vocabulary. I just don't understand half the terms that he uses.
I know.
But so being an author, okay, and I know you go to book signings. Where are you going to be coming up? Where are your book signings?
I have 2. I don't have hard dates yet, but 2 are tentatively scheduled. Actually, there should be a third, but I know of. I will be returning to. I was just at the Stoughton House of Brews last week, and then we're scheduling, I think, late in the month for a Saturday. So it'll probably be the last Saturday of the month for that place, and then either the week before or the week after is going to be at a place called Read More Books here in Taunton, Massachusetts. Very old school, family-owned business bookstore, old school bookstore that has that stuff that not a lot of people keep on hand, and a lot of older books. A lot of it's just one of those places you want to spend all day in, and both of those places have been very supportive from the beginning, and I can't be thankful enough to them. And another supportive bookstore in the area is Annie's Books, and tentatively next month I should be there as well. All these dates will be solidified in the next several days and put on my website.
Absolutely, and we'll get to your website in just a few minutes. You mentioned something, an old-fashioned bookstore, an independent bookstore, if you will, not the Barnes and Noble or
Exactly.
or
Correct.
the corporate ones. I got to say, I miss it. A friend of mine out here in California made a film of the last independent bookstore in Long Beach, California, and I have to get him on there. He has to definitely be a member of this show, because it would be perfect. But what do you feel of those independent bookstores?
Oh, I love mom and pop bookstores. If you just talk to the people, you know it's different. It's not just some guy hired off the street for, short money that just needs a job. These people, this is books of their life. They could tell you most of the authors and a lot of the books. They just know them. They're almost librarian-esque. They know where everything is. They know how what it means, what it is, what they've read it. They've experienced it for the most, and there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. Going into a place that knows what you're talking about, especially when you're talking about something obscure. And that every time it pleasantly surprises me. You just meet a nice cast of characters there, so
Sure.
they're great people.
You need to book a book tour out here in California.
I would love to. It's probably a lot warmer than it's been here.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with an area of California. It's up north. It's called Ojai, and they have a wonderful. It's actually, believe it or not, it's an old school bookstore, and it's outdoors, and it is the most wonderful. I mean, it's the most wonderful experience. And I would love, obviously I would love it if you could come to California, because I'd love to meet you in person. But if you could figure out a way to get booked at the bookstore in Ojai, that would be an awesome experience, and I know you'd fit
It
in really
sure
well. So
Maybe I could do a little work in the background over the next several weeks, see what I can do.
Yeah,
yeah. Is
absolutely.
Now there's a picture. The picture that we're using for the show today, I notice is doing a book signing. What bookstore was that at? Was that a mom and pop, or was that a big, like a Barnes and Noble type store?
That was actually for your
No.
first book. That was for your first book.
Oh, the first book, that was the I did it in a couple places. I went to the Read More Books we were talking about earlier, which is that mom and pop. And another place that's actually on my website now. I gotta update the website. It's the Stoughton House of Brews, and it's actually a coffee house, but they have local authors. They promote local artists and authors to come in, and they do reading groups in the morning. So it was actually early in the day. It was at 9 a.m. On a Tuesday of all things. So it sounds like an odd time, but it was actually fairly successful. That they have people come in. It's a beautiful setting, like a living room with a fireplace, and they do coffees and scones and that kind of thing. And a lot of people are readers. They come in and they hang out and read, and they use the Wi-Fi, and they have all these exotic coffees, and they were just talking books. And I wound up meeting a lot of great people who took some books home, and including some members of the school committee. And who really enjoyed the work. And going off of that, my wife is a teacher, and her school library stocks the young adult series that I have going on. And the reading teacher in that class actually had a class on one of the books, the first book that you guys have, actually. So it's just great exposure, because those kids that read that book then will remember that, and as they're older, maybe turn somebody else onto it, or just read them again, and follow my work throughout time.
Oh, that's awesome that the kids are taking the time to read the book. What is your website?
My website is Ken Spears, Spears. No, I'm not related to Brittany. Author.webs.com.
That's great.
I'm not even going to go there.
I get asked all the time, quick side story: my wife's pregnant several years ago.
Mhm.
We're going to have a girl. Are you going to name it Brittany? Everybody, are you going to name it Brittany? Are you going to name it Brittany?
Why
What?
would
No,
you do that?
Why? Why would we do that? No, we did not.
Yeah. Why would?
I don't think you can. I think if there's already
No. As long as she is not a celebrity or uses that name.
right.
Right.
Well, so Ken, is when you do a book signing, is that part of the job of your agent to work that out too, or do you do that personally, or is it a little bit of both?
I do a lot of that personally because I actually enjoy it. That's fun. Meeting people. I'm just happy that I have people that like to call themselves fans. You know, it's kind of a weird thing. I'm like, I have a fan. Okay, that's thank you.
You have
I
two.
just enjoy
You have
talking
two.
to them.
You have two fans right here.
Thank you very much, and that's very appreciated. You guys have been instrumental in my success, and I can't say enough great things about the both of you
Thank
and
you.
your show, Barry. You guys are just terrific. I can't say enough good things.
Well, thank you.
It's very
Well,
appreciated.
I'm honestly very humbled by hearing that, because sometimes you don't hear that, and it's really nice. Thank you. I gotta say, your first book, anyways, was incredible. I couldn't put it down, and I don't like to read because I did enough
And
of
that's
that
great.
in college.
That's exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
And egg on my face that I didn't send you the second one. So the third one and the second one are grouped together and en route to your home as we speak. A signed copy for the two of you.
Nice.
And thank you 1,000 times. Thank you. Very appreciated for everything that you've done.
Yes. Hey.
So-
So Ken, do you think that that your books, if somebody offered to turn your books into a movie, that you would accept that, or do you feel that keeping it as a book and letting the reader create their own movie is the way that you want to see your writing?
Well, the payday be too good to turn down, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm
of
just
course.
going to be frank with everybody. I'm not going to lie anyway. That's probably the case, but it has yet to be offered. Actually, long story short, is that first book that you guys had was in the hands of somebody in Hollywood. Nothing has come of it. Hopefully someday maybe it will. But no, I wouldn't turn it down. But I think in most cases the book, no matter whose book it was that was turned into a movie, if you've read it first, especially, you look at the movie as something tertiary, something secondary, because perfect example is Stephen King's The Shining, and I read the book and then I saw the movie, and I thought at first, the movie wasn't that great, and it took a second and a third viewing to realize how good a piece of cinema that was. But even though it was not like the book, or not overly like the book, it was like the book, but not too much. But in most cases, you'll read the book and you'll see the movie and just be disappointed. But that's one of the few cases where it wound up being a piece of art on its own.
That's true. That's true.
It is a piece of art, and it is another one. Even though clowns freak me out, but that's where I need therapy. But that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but in a lot of cases, a lot of books, and it could be anything from Ernest Hemingway that we've had to read back. And actually, I love Hemingway, and if there was one author that I try to emulate, it's he. And it's not for the reasons you think. It's because he was not only a great writer, and he told a lot of stories, going back to your other question, that actually came out of his life. You know, he served in World War I, and he had all these things happen to him, and he wrote these stories about them, but he lived larger than he really was. I mean, you always see these pictures of him on safari and climbing mountains and, going to bullfights, and these aren't necessarily the exact things I need to do myself, but I like to live an active life so that I have actually something to say and something to write about.
That's a
that's
smart
good source
move.
for everybody.
That's a smart move. And you know, doesn't Hemingway remind you a little bit of the guy who's the most interesting guy in the world on those commercials?
Yes, but in his case, he probably is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you know, I can't believe this. The 50 minutes is almost up. I mean, there's like 4 minutes left, and this hour has just flown by.
Flown.
Yeah. So Ken, when can we expect the autobiography of Ken Spears?
That you know, I'm going to leave to somebody more capable than I. Instead of doing, they can do the biography. But just a really quick heads up: there's a vampire story called Natalia that's already been out of editing, in the hands of a publisher right now. I want to see how soon that'll come out. I'm hoping it's for the Halloween season because it's actually set up for that. The detective book, starring Finley Waters, my new detective character, will be out. That's the next thing I'm going to publish. It's called Diamonds in the Snow. Stay tuned for that one. And right behind it will be Clan of the Tiger. Ooh. That's for the younger crowd. It's about lions and tigers, and that's dedicated to my daughter, who was the inspiration for that one. And then, of course, over the winter time, we'll be doing the third installment in the Step Patrick series called Mr. Midnight. That's all written. It's got to go into editing, and it should be ready after winter. And then right behind that, I'll have another Finley Waters mystery and probably another short story collection. So like I was saying earlier, I've got stuff for the next 12 to 16 months, so all geared up. My goal is to get 10 books out in the next 2 years.
Nice. Very nice. How old's your daughter?
I think I've bitten off more than I could chew, but I'm going to try it anyway.
We're from Stoughton. Of course we bite off more than we can chew. We're New Englanders,
yes,
damn it.
That's right.
So how old's your daughter?
She's 7.
Oh, that's perfect.
And her name is Samantha, and she is so smart and so beautiful.
Well, of course she is.
She's an inspiration.
Of course she is. And we'll do a shout-out to Samantha, because I'm sure she'll watch us on demand.
Yes.
Yes.
You bet.
You bet.
She was actually listening up until about 10 minutes ago when sleep caught her, the best of her. So
well, there you go. But we'll do that. And what's your son's name?
His name's Greg.
Hey, Greg, we're going to give a shout out to you. We can't forget you. How old's Greg?
Greg is 17.
Oh, God.
And this last book, How Deep the Night, was dedicated to Greg.
Nice. That's the way it should be. Well, all right, real quickly, Ken, the website again is www.kenspearsauthor.webs.com. Check out his books. They rock. Ken, I would like to thank you very much for being here. You are a tremendous guest. Amy, I would like to thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. And Ken, I want to say I can't wait for the day that alongside all the authors that we know will be, your name will be there too, and I'll be able to say I knew you when.
Oh, and I'll be able to say that too. Well, folks, thank you very much for watching the special Friday night edition of the Craig Berry Experience here on New Day Talk Radio, where every day is a new day. I will see you next time with Dr. Niyama Williams. She's been on our show before. That will be fun. That will be fun. We'll talk about psychological issues, which I know some of us still have. So until then, we are out of here, and we will talk to you soon.